welcome everyone to AARP Wyoming's Video Voter Guide Series for 2024. I'm Tom Laycock with AARP Wyoming, and today we're joined by Matt Malcom, who's running for the Wyoming Legislature in House District 61, located in Laramie County. AARP has a proud 40-year history of nonpartisan voter engagement, does not endorse or oppose candidates, nor does AARP make contributions to political campaigns or candidates at any level. Instead, we ask questions so our members understand where the candidates stand on important issues and can make their own decisions on Election Day. Today, we'll ask Mr. Malcom 3 questions, allowing for a 1-minute and 30-second response to each. Then we'll give him 2 minutes to make his final pitch to the voters of House District 61. So, Mr. Malcom, our first question is this. Over the last 2 years, the Wyoming Legislature has made providing property tax relief for its citizens a priority. In your view, what's the most effective way to provide relief while balancing the revenue needs for our schools, counties, and other entities that rely on property tax to maintain sustainable funding?
Absolutely, Tom. And I want to thank you and the AARP so much for having me on this. So there's 2 main things I want to discuss in relation to this. The first is the issue of property tax, the aspect of the tax side of it. So property tax has become an issue in recent years because the cost of housing has almost doubled the progress of inflation. So housing has become 2 times more expensive than inflation has over the same period of time. So in order to circumvent this, the legislature this past session passed a bill for some property tax reform in order to cap the potential of that at 4%, which I think is brilliant, especially when you look at things like how Social Security and Medicaid are priced to keep up with inflation. This way it stays within retirees' budgets in order to afford these things. The second aspect is going to be making housing more affordable in general. And so by expanding developments and pushing for rezoning of areas, we'll be able to make it more affordable for people to own those houses in the long term, because everyone wants their house to go up in value until suddenly I can barely afford the property taxes, even though they've been at the same percentage for this entire time. The other thing to note is property taxes don't go directly to the state. They go to things like schools, hospitals, the local amenities for the most part. And so as much as this is a state level issue, it will be up to a lot of city council and local municipality groups in order to redo these zonings to allow for this.
Our second question for today. Wyoming's population of those aged 60 and over grew by 47% from 2010 to 2020, while the state's entire population grew just 2%. We know 64% of all nursing home beds in Wyoming are paid for right now by the state Medicaid program. What do you see as the greatest barrier to helping our older adults age in their homes and communities, and what solutions would you provide?
Thanks, Tom. So once again, there's 2 big aspects to go along with this. One is we'd love to see older people get to stay in the houses that they've owned for forever, for as long as possible. So maybe diverting some Medicaid funding over to at-home care, or expanding eligibility of at-home care for these older citizens that need that type of assistance. In addition, there's the social aspect, which if we could possibly also divert some funding over to allowing these individuals the opportunity to go out and be social and be in the community, even if they've lost their driver's license or are just having troubles getting around, having access to these things. And this is a particular challenge here in Wyoming, where we do have this massively rural community across the state. So these will not be the cheapest solutions, but I think that they're the best in order to get these elderly people involved in the community more, and again, allowing them a longer time before they need to be put into something like an at-home and in residence at retirement home and have to have 24/7 care. Those are also great at the end of the day because they do allow for a social community there, but we also acknowledge that they're very expensive in the long run, and takes a lot of Medicare and Medicaid funding in order to afford those.
Our final question for today. Emergency medical services are not considered an essential service in Wyoming, and in some areas, ambulance services do not have a sustainable funding source. Over the last 10 years, Wyoming has seen 16 EMS providers in the state fold or consolidate with another service. What solutions would you offer for ensuring access to ambulance services?
Thanks, Tom. So this does not have an easy solution. Due to the rural nature of Wyoming, we see this issue also occur with things like schools and other amenities that we utilize on a day-to-day basis. For ambulatory services specifically, it's important that we get these resources to those rural communities that need them. Here in Laramie County, we don't see it as much of an issue, mostly because we live in this nice suburban neighborhood, basically. Most likely the best option for this is utilizing state funding to incentivize municipalities to start up something like a EMS district, or the alternative is we try and make agreements with private businesses that have been offering ambulatory services in other states and try and find incentives to bring them to the state in which it would be affordable for us while accessible for them. There's not a perfect answer when it comes to this one, and I would love to see what the experts on the subject matter do have to say about it and try and find the best possible solution forward instead of just spewing an answer off the top of my head. I feel like there's just people that have studied this and have a much deeper understanding. In addition, we could probably look at what some other states are doing and try and borrow from them in order to establish a sustainable model moving forward.
Mr. Malcom, thank you so much for answering our 3 questions. Now let's give you 2 minutes to tell the voters of House District 61 why you're the man for the job.
Awesome. Thanks again, Tom. So I've been in Wyoming since the year 2010. I was not born here originally, but I've spent the vast majority of my life here. I've fallen in love with this state. There is no place in the world I would rather be than especially here in Laramie County. We have pretty much anything anyone could ever want or need right here at our fingertips. The reason I'm running is not out of a particular desire, but more out of almost a call to need. I've been watching the legislature for years now slowly divide and further tear itself apart, and I would love to see things get brought back together. I spent the past 6 years in the Wyoming Air National Guard, and 3 of those years I spent full-time as a non-commissioned officer. And I've learned a lot of experience working within governmental programs, working with individuals, and finding the best solutions forward in pretty much every scenario you can imagine. At present, I'm also finishing out my undergraduate degree in political science and American studies in order to better understand these processes and to better represent the voters in my district. The last part is I don't feel like the voice of the voters in my district is being heard. I don't feel like it's being represented accurately by the present representation, and would love to take on that in order to reach out to the voters, find out what they actually want and what they actually need, and then help find the best solution forward for them. At this point, I think that that's all I really can say in regards to how I believe I would serve the position better.
Well, thank you for your time today, Mr. Malcom, and thank you to our viewers for joining us in this video voter guide. We encourage you to keep checking Cowboy State Daily and AARP Wyoming's Facebook page for more voter guides in the days to come.